Hello my fiery friends, the Infernoman here with the latest in budget deck technology. And for today's deck tag, we'll be covering a deck that I'm going to just call Phyrexian Infestation. Now I know some of you out there have seen already Infernoman. We've already covered before the Scute Swarm pile, but hear me out for a second. What if we re-evaluated this deck with some of the latest cards we've seen from other sets, such as the Phyrexia All for V1, and of course, March of the Machine. And as you see, we're going to explain to you how we make our bugs bigger, badder, and more scarier than ever. But as always, let's go over, of course, the details of the deck. So specifically, this is a mono green deck where we are going to be very land heavy. First off, we're going to have about 18 creatures in the main deck with 18 non-creature spells, an average mana curve of about 2.7, which does look a little bit high considering we only run 24 lands, but you'll see how this works in a little bit. As far as the other specific non-creature spells, it's 8 instants, 4 enchantments, 2 planeswalkers, and 4 battle cards. Now, as I kind of just briefly mentioned, again, this deck is going to try to go extremely wide very quickly, so you probably already know how Scute Swarm works. Scute Swarm is basically a 3-mana creature insect. It's a 1/1 with landfall. The landfall trigger basically reads, whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If we control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scute Swarm. So you basically have figured this out. We're going to make a ton of bugs by putting out a ton of lands onto the battlefield. So what has exactly changed, you may be asking? Well, that's of course where the other cards come into play. The latest additions to the deck are going to be mostly our mid and late game finishers, which I'll get to in just a moment, but the biggest card that helps Scute Swarm the most right now is going to be Tribute to the World Tree. This new enchantment is a 3 green enchantment that reads, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. Otherwise, we put 2+1/+1 counters on it. Now, unfortunately, this does mean that our bugs will not trigger off the card draw ability, but we don't worry about that because we have other ways of getting through. Instead, we're just trying to make our bugs bigger by coming into the battlefield as instead 1/1s that are all going to come in now as 3/3s, which honestly gives our opponent a much bigger threat they have to deal with. Still, there's going to be a harder way for them to get through, even if they are 3/3s, if they can keep shun blocking. So the other option we have is we're going to have a copy of Garruk's Uprising. So with this card, basically we get to then push all of our creatures through with Trample. Granted, also, yes, as you can see, the card, of course, will really get more benefit when we actually have a creature power 4 or greater to draw cards as well. But we don't worry about that. I'll explain why again in a little bit. As far as other support cards for this whole game plan in the 3-drop slot, let's backtrack a bit to the 1-drop. So we have our Mana Dorks and Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves to get the early ramp going and to ensure that we can then start getting our 3-drops down ASAP. The other creature in the deck is going to be Prosperous Innkeeper, which basically gives us an extra life whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control. So you probably may have figured out already, with the amount of bugs we have, we're going to get a lot, and I mean a lot, of life gain. So that really helps us out a ton here. In order for us to take the time we need to build up our entire insect army, we will need Haze of Pollen to prevent all combat damage from going through us, especially if we have a lot of bigger creature decks out there. Especially also maybe say, oh, I don't know, we have to deal with some of those annoying decks such as Mono Green Devotion. God, I hate that deck so much. But otherwise, our version of green, of course, needs a little bit more time, which is why we have it. If we don't need the card, just cycle it when you don't need it. As for mass protection, we don't really have anything in this deck because we are a budget deck, so we will utilize instead Tamiyo's Safekeeping, which allows us to protect any one of our permanents with Hexproof and Indestructible. Ideally, save these for the Scute Swarm to make sure that even if your board gets Wrath, you can always rebuild right after. Now, as far as the ramp package is concerned, this is where our new cards come in. Invasion of Zendikar basically enters as our battle to help us get out some extra lands onto the battlefield. Tapped, we shuffle. If we can flip this card into the Awakened Skyclave, that technically counts as a land as well, which will trigger off Scute Swarm, and because it's going to come in as a 4/4, as you can see, it'll also trigger off Tribute to the World Tree to give us a little extra card draw. So it's a huge bonus when we get this card out and we can flip the battle. And as far as our finishers, our first finisher we're going to talk about is going to be Nissa. With its ability, we can create a bunch of green Phyrexian horror creature tokens where X is Nissa's Ascendant Animus's loyalty. So even if we're triggering it at its lowest end with only 3 loyalty, when we trigger it to 4, it actually will trigger off the Tribute to the World Tree to help us draw cards. So this is an easy way to build up what we need. If we can cast it for full power, however, basically we can use its -7 immediately on as an overrun if we have already a Scute Swarm army, because then with all all the forests that we're going to have out, we'll be able to overrun our opponent very easily and close out the game. If this, however, does not work out for whatever reason, our only other option is plan B to the deck, which is Ancient Imperiosaur. So this card has Convoke and it has Trample and Ward. So easily, even if we tap out with a giant Scute Swarm army, we convoke all of our creatures to then bring out the Imperiosaur, coming out as a massive dinosaur to smash through our opponent with hopefully a one-hit KO. So those are basically the two ways to do it. However, if there's even a way where we can't get through any of this, our final option is, with all the ramping we do, the payoff will be Lair of the Hydra. So with Lair of the Hydra, we just turn this land into a creature card, which can then smash through and hit our opponent, and also kind of do the same thing Ancient Imperiosaur can do. But that's otherwise going to be the overall game package of how we're trying to get to victory. For the lands themselves, 18 forests, because again, we are a budget deck. I did mention the Lair of the Hydra right now. 4 Cavalry Courtyards. This is just to get extra landfall triggers with our Scute Swarm, and the Field of Ruin to pick off any enemy creature lands that we don't want to deal with. For the sideboard ourselves, it's a little bit of an interesting hodgepodge. We're going to start with Atrox's Fall. This is actually a pretty sweet card. It's a really cheap. It is sorcery speed, but it not only hits artifacts, enchantments as our hate card, but also it defeats battles too. So this is actually something I really want to utilize more in future decks. We also have Destiny Spinner to make sure nothing we play against control gets countered. Kenrith's Transformation, 2 copies of these. These will basically turn off any one of the enemy creatures like a Shieldred or whatever, just to make sure that they don't really harm us in the mid to late game. For your Graveyard Hate, as always, I love Soul Guide Lantern. This is a given for us. For combo decks out there, Dampening Spear will slow them down and will turn off any of the colored mana they do into colorless mana. And then finally, since we have a giant army of Scute Swarms, or if we have the Ancient Imperiosaur out, we can use Tandem Takedown as our pseudo spot removal. But that's otherwise the whole deck for you in a nutshell. I have no idea, again, if this is probably the best way to go with a mono green creature focused deck, because I do know that, of course, if people say, well, Infernoman, why not just play mono green Devotion? Because that's boring. And this is actually a much more janky and hilariously fun game plan that I believe definitely has what it takes to hold its own in the format. So without further ado, let's take our deck into a couple matches and have some fun. But before we continue, if you do like any of the content that I do, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you watch the content so you don't miss out on any of the gameplay, booster pack openings, deck decks, and so much more. Okay, my fire friends, here we go. We are playing our Phyrexian Infestation deck. So we have Scute Swarm, we have Invasion of Zendikar, we have Dorks, and I think we can keep this. So let's go ahead and see if we can pull this off. So Yorion Sky Nomad, that obviously means it's a domain deck. So we're gonna have to see if we can just get around stuff here ASAP. Okay, so Forest, Scute Swarm, looking good right now. Field of Ruin here might be really critical. No, okay. Really? Wow. Our opponent already had that. It's fine, everybody, it's fine. So with that, Field of Ruin, Invasion of Zendikar, get our forests, pass the turn. So we have plenty of lands now, which is fine. We just need to find a way to get around stuff here. Second Invasion of Zendikar. Make some more landfall drops. Another land. Elvish Mystic. We go swinging at one of our Omen of the Seas. Oh, Omen of the Sun, actually. Oh boy. All right. Opponent trying to block here. We'll protect it for a moment. So we at least get rid of one token. But this is going to be really annoying also to fight. Definitely Clarion. A little frustrating, but it's fine. We Haze of Pollen. We need to dig for an answer here. Tribute to the World Tree. And we pass. So we're set up. We just need a payoff. Birth of Meletis. They're digging for a land. Yorion's coming in soon. Ooh, okay. Ooh, we have Nissa here. Okay, this is great. So with that, we will go full price on Nissa. We will then create a token, an 8/8, draw a card, and we pass. Okay. Not exactly how I was expecting this to go, but we'll make this work. What will you do, opponents? Are you going to then bring in Yorion now? We'll see. Yorion Sky Nomad coming in. Most likely they're going to blink that Baffling in. So we do get another token out of that, which is pretty nice. Oh, wow. Okay. We did it. Yeah, we actually got there. Again, I wasn't expecting this. Okay, so real quick, just if anybody looked confused, I'm assuming our opponent had no way of getting around the Phyrexian Horror. The Baffling End just doesn't really do anything. It just gives us another free token, which allowed us to keep our thing going. We paid for Nissa full price, so I guess our opponent just didn't have an answer for all this. So, yay? Okay, my fire friends, here we go. We are playing our Phyrexian Infestation deck, and this hand has a lot of ramp, but we don't have a payoff. I don't know if we want to keep this. It should be okay if we can just get at least 1 or 2 payoffs out of the deck. We're going to mulligan and see what we get. Okay, this is okay. This works, sort of. I think we can keep this. So we'll put back the Haze of Pollen, and we'll keep everything else here. So Forest down, Llanowar else. At the very least, we can ramp hopefully fast enough so maybe we can get to an Ancient Imperiosaur. Opponent's got black mana. Mana push. Oh, there goes that. All right. So with that Forest, Prosperous Innkeeper. I'm going to be playing Rakdos decks this whole time. I really hope we don't. Alright. Unlucky Witness. Okay, so this is a Sacrifice Cat Oven deck. We should be able to at least overwhelm them after a certain point, so let's go ahead and do our thing. Invasion of Zendikar. That gives us some lands. Okay, not too bad. No attacks yet. We just get down the Elvish Mystic, and we should be fine. The trickiest part, of course, is just dealing with that Witch's Oven in case if they have anything else. If they don't have any hard removal, we could get an Ancient Imperiosaur out pretty quickly here. Another land. Opponent's stumbling right now, so this actually gives us an advantage. Okay, so with that, we'll put down Field of Ruin. Elvish Mystic. Get some life. We will then play Ancient Imperiosaur. Not for full price, but we can still make a pretty powerful dinosaur here. Alright, it's a 10-10. Deadly Disputes. Okay, opponent is digging. We do have a clock now. The dinosaur can definitely smash through our opponent's stuff. Wow, opponent is really getting desperate for lands. This actually might work in our favor. Yes! We did it. We got a win. I mean, again, I know it wasn't anything crazy there, everyone. But you kind of saw... Oh, yeah, we definitely had fun. But you kind of saw there... Real quick, let me check the battlefield. So, yeah, even if our opponent had anything out, even the Cat Oven, it wasn't going to stop it because that dinosaur will just smash through to our opponent really quickly here. So, yay! All right, my fire friends, here we go. We are playing our Phyrexian Infestation deck, a budget ramp deck, trying to get out a bunch of bugs. And we actually don't have any bugs here. We have, once again, a lot of ramp and not really a payoff. So we're going to have to mulligan here. And let's hope we get something good. And, okay, this is not the worst. We do have our dinosaur here and the tribute to the World Tree. If we can just get at least 1 insect out or a couple mana dorks, we can then power out an Imperiosaur very quickly. So let's keep this. And we will put back the Cavalry Courtyard first. Actually, maybe we should have put back the Cavalry Courtyard first. Oh, okay. This is Spirits. Well, the good news is also we did get a Scute Swarm, but Spirits is might be a little wonky for us. This is not exactly a deck we want to face in best of 1. They have too many counters for us, and we might unfortunately get stuck. But we'll fight, and we'll see what happens. Gonna go swinging. All right, Prosperous Innkeeper, so not too shabby. Field of Ruin. Prosperous Innkeeper. Lofty Denial. The tempo plays begin. Furious Obsession. Spirits literally is just the new tempo deck. Y'all remember Mono Blue Tempo from way back? That was an annoying deck to fight. But here we go again, trying to like make our own variant here. Alright, Scute Swarm. Come on, Bug Army. I believe in us. Really should not have put back that Cavalry Courtyard. This is kind of awkward, but if we get enough bugs, maybe we won't have to worry too much. Ascended Spirit. I'm gonna go swinging. We're down to 14. They draw a card. Okay, so we did manage to at least get out what we need here. So let's go ahead and play a Scute Swarm again. Ooh, we didn't get a counterspell. All right, well, this is good. Make some bugs. If we can power out now our Imperiosaur, we should be able to actually find a way around our opponent. Rattle Chains. So we have two ways of getting through here at this point. If we can get the Tribute of the World Tree, that might help us out, but that might be a little bit on the slow side. We might just go straight for the Imperiosaur. It really depends on what our opponent's trying to do here. On the other hand, if we want to delay ourselves, we also have a Haze of Pollen still. So we have options. I guess it depends on if we get another land. If we get another land, we should be fine. We get to use... Ooh, okay, great. This is great. Okay, so with that, we'll play another forest, make some bugs. Okay. Tribute to the World Tree. Yes, I know we could have done this earlier, but I need to see if our opponent actually is going to bait us out with a counterspell. They do not. So we're going to actually hold off here. I know I'm getting a little greedy here, everybody, but hear me out. We just need... Okay, so Brazen Borrower. Bounces it back. Shacklegeist. Even if they tap our stuff down, we have Haze of Pollen now. Okay, opponent. Land. Do they pump? If we can force them to pump, this might be okay. Okay, they do pump. That's good. That's good for us. Oh, this is perfect. This is perfect. Okay. Okay, Haze of Pollen. Okay, so we stall out for a turn. Tribute to the World Tree. Okay, so this is how we do it, everybody. Tribute to the World Tree. Forest. We're pulling it off here. We're getting our bugs. Yay. Okay, so with that now, go into full control mode here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Resolve. Alright, we got a huge dinosaur. Yes. And a Llanowar. Neat. Okay. So the good news is we actually were able to pull off the Imperiosaur here, but it's also way too late too. Honestly, I just wanted to do this just to show you that it is possible to pull this off. But sadly, we just didn't get past spirits. They fly. There's nothing really we can do against flyers. Well, we didn't really get a chance to win that one, everyone. But again, I'm not mad, because at least you get to see that the deck does have the potential. We just have to find a way to get through that. And hopefully we find another match that we can show you really what this deck is capable of. And there you have it, everybody. So that was our Phyrexian Infestation deck. So you tell me in the comments below, what do you think? Would you play this deck? Again, as you saw from the footage, we did get some wins, but they were very much not exactly how I was expecting to win. So just keep that in mind if you are liking this deck. I don't think this is a really bad deck. I just think because we're under the restraints of how I like to play, which is on a budget, the deck does kind of suffer a little bit from that. So keep that in mind again if you are interested in this build. If your opponent has the hard removal, we kind of are slow. If your opponent doesn't have the removal, then we sometimes run out of gas. So just keep that in mind if you are interested in this deck. If you're a person that's absolutely sick of Mono Green Devotion, I think this deck might be an alternate fun way to play. But you saw when we were playing ranked, we struggled quite a bit, actually, a lot more than I thought I did. So if you do stick around, for those of you that are my true fiery friends, wait until the end of the video when I do my final part of the wrap-up in a little bit, and you'll see that when the deck does have all of its pieces fall into one place, it's actually pretty hilarious, and it's actually very amazing when you see it go off. So normally this is also where I'm going to recommend some upgrades, but this is also where it gets a little awkward because the deck is still in a weird spot. I honestly thought the gimmick was going to be good enough where we can make it work, but it didn't really do what I was hoping it would do, so I'm a little disappointed that it didn't pull it off. I won't give any recommended upgrades for this, only just because, again, the deck, I think we have an idea here of maybe what we want to do to try this again in the future, but maybe we might want to splash into another color and we might have to go non-budget to pull this off. So my only thing I'm just going to say is, for my final thoughts, if you are a person that is, again, disgusted already with what Mono Green Devotion does, maybe you don't want to spend that many rares or mythics, I still think this deck actually has what it takes. Maybe you might want to look at maybe some better payoffs. Maybe we might want to look at alternate ways of getting more of our action so we don't end up into situations where we run out of gas. However, as you can see from the footage, you see from this finale part, if you are a fan of the Scute Swarm gimmick, if you like the idea of convoking out a giant dinosaur, or if you like the idea of making your bugs bigger and badder, with then finishing them off with your Nissa, and then just going -7 to just overrun your opponent, I would still say, give this deck a try, and I can assure you, if you are a fan of mono green and want to try something completely different that your opponent is not expecting, when you see this deck go off, I assure you, you will definitely not be disappointed. That's all I have for you today. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and just remember that no matter what you do play in the game of life, always be sure to burn bright. Later!